welcome back to the channel. It's your favorite realtor, Dr. Yeti, and I'm back with yet another video. Today we're gonna be reacting to Americans have 4 years to find an affordable place to live. We're in 2026. That means we have until 2030 to find another place to live. I'm very curious to see what he has to say. And also, I wanted to know what because I've heard a lot of people say that they need to leave here, but even if you leave here, where would you go, right? Anyway, let's see what he's talking about. But before we get into the video, we are at 160 subscribers. 160. That is amazing, and I'm very grateful. We are on the road to 500 subscribers. I'm excited to see. Because last year the goal was to reach 100 subscribers before December 31st, and we surpassed that. We exceeded that, and now we're in January 5th and we're at 160 subscribers. So I'm very grateful. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you haven't liked this video yet, what are you waiting for? You already know this video is about to be good, okay? So don't forget to hit the like button. And yeah, let's get straight to the video.
I don't even think I need to say this, but the price of homes are going up substantially. And it's probably not going to be long before the average person is completely priced out of homes. As a matter of fact, I feel very bad for the younger generations, knowing that most of them probably won't be able to own. I would say that, I don't know what the percentage is, but I would say a vast majority of the younger generation is probably going to have to rent or lease. And that's a terrible thing, because when you do that, you're stuck in the system for your entire life. You never actually own anything. And that's not to say that when you own a home and you own property that you actually own it, because you do have to pay taxes on it. And that's something you can't really get away from. So in a way, we can't really own anything except for ourselves, except for our health, except for our lives. But, you know, it's a sad thing that you can't own an asset, an appreciating asset, and something that was once a part of the American dream. And the common narrative out there is that the reason for this, the reason home prices have gone up, is because of inflation, is because the average person is going out there and they're buying up homes for Airbnbs, and that's causing the price of homes to go up. But is that really true? Or is all this a massive psyop?
Once upon a time, it was true, right? During the low interest rate eras, and like between 2020 and 2022, maybe 2023, people were buying homes with the intention of putting on an Airbnb. But when all these restrictions with Airbnb started coming up, and the way that Airbnb was treating their guests and their hosts, the system kind of went down, right? I mean, not saying there are no more Airbnbs, they're still out there. People are still getting listings and having, you know, guests in their homes. But a lot of people that had Airbnbs once upon a time have been selling their properties because it's no longer profitable. And if it is profitable, it is a very stressful business. Airbnb is not for the weak. And the way that it was being sold, the dream that was being sold at the time, was that it's a very simple business. You don't have to be there. You can hire some cleaners and you can do it virtually anywhere. You can have 10 million Airbnbs and you'll be fine. But they didn't tell you the reality of being an Airbnb host. They did not. And maybe I'll make a whole separate video talking about it, but it is not for the weak. So I don't think, and I think also about 30% of investors, 30% of people who were homeowners in the past few years were investors, and about 80 to 90% of those people were individual investors, not major companies, not like investment firms or anything like that. They were regular mom and pop landlords. And so a lot of those people are selling their properties because like they just don't see the return on investment, especially if you purchase the property 2023, 2022, 2023. The interest rates were so high that it just wasn't even going to be worth it to rent it out and make much profit from it.
I can tell you that I've looked into this pretty deeply, because now that I've gotten older, I've gotten into investing. Growing up throughout my entire life, nobody ever taught me about this stuff, and I never invested. But now I'm getting into it. and I'm still learning, but I'm learning some stuff that is kind of hard to digest. It's stuff that I didn't want to hear, and it's stuff that now that I've seen it, I can't unsee it. And I'm going to share that with you because I think this is very, very important. And this isn't a doom and gloom video, I promise you that. This is it's gonna shine the light on some very bad stuff, some stuff that's happening in the background that most people aren't aware of. But it's also going to provide some, I don't know if you call them silver linings, but at least some potential solutions to the problems that we all face. Because even if you don't own a home, this is affecting everybody. The fact that land and home prices and all this stuff is going up is affecting all of us, whether we know it or not. So if you're not aware of this, corporations are the main reason that home prices are going up. And let me just give you an example of this, all right? So I'm not going to name names of these corporations or these private investment firms because there are several.
I think the major question before we even delve too deep into it is, where is he based? Because we have debunked this. Matter of fact, let's do some quick research. I'm just Google it. Percentage of investors in housing market. Okay. Oh, whoops. Okay, it says in mid 2025, investors bought 1/3 of all single family properties. Now that's 33%. That's a lot, right? Somebody on Reddit saying 27%, but Google is saying 20. Let's go with CNBC. Okay, it says investors are making up the highest share of homeowners in 5 years. But who are the investors? Let's see. What is the increase? Let's see. Let's look up what is the makeup of real estate investors in 2025. Because I'm not gonna lie. I'm not going to lie. If the answer is that majority of that 1/3 is major corporations, that's a problem. So it says in 2025, the real estate investor landscape is predominantly composed of small. Yeah, exactly. And I was wrong. I was right. The real estate investor landscape is predominantly composed of small scale mom and pop investors who own over 90% of investor owned homes. So out of that 33% of, or 1/3 of homeowners that are investors, 90% of them are regular people who just want to start their own business. We've already debunked that. Yeah, you know, that's a lot of people that own homes, the investors. But if only 10% of those investors are major corporations, then why are we blaming major corporations as the reason why homes aren't selling?
Several. And all you have to do is do some searches on this. Google, DuckDuckGo, use some search engines that aren't controlled by the algorithm, and you're going to find the answer. But I don't want to name the names in this video because I found that sometimes when that happens, the videos don't make it to all the people they need to make it to. And I want this to be as broad reaching as possible so that more people know.
Let's find their names. I'm not going to say them. We just going to Google it. Who are the big corporate did I spell corporate right? No. Okay, I'm not gonna say their names, but they're right there. Okay, all right, let's see. Oh, okay, all right, well, you have your answers right there.
Exactly what's going on so we can actually fight back against this. So a prime example of this, there is a large institution that recently just bought over 50,000 homes, single family households, They bought these homes for around $300,000 a piece, but what they did is they turned around and sold them to themselves. Apparently this is a thing because this massive firm, they own different, I would call them entities, it's almost like sister firms. So they're able to buy properties and then resell them to themselves. But when they do that, they sell them for a lot more money. So what happens is they come in, they buy these properties for about 20 to 30% above the asking price. That price is us little guys out of buying the home because we can't afford that. But these private investment firms and these corporations,
I'm gonna look into that. I don't know how true it is. I'm not saying he's wrong, but I'm saying like I have never heard of that. And if that is a strategy that they're doing, that is very like that can really skew and affect the housing market significantly. However, at least where I am, when I do look at the sales, it's not, there are certain areas in Georgia, for example, Loganville is one of those where a lot of properties that are a lot of properties that are on the market are corporate owned properties, right? I've seen that in certain areas. And there are certain areas that are, I'm looking at the Atlanta housing market, and most of the homes that I'm seeing that are for sale or are being purchased are not by entities, they are by individuals. Now, a lot of homes are owned by entities, don't get me wrong, but like, I don't see that. You know, and I used to sit on my computer for hours making phone calls to listings that have expired so I can get those listings. I used to do that, and I've come across a few LLCs, but most of them are actual people that I call. I call a lot more people. I called a lot more people than I did LLCs. So I don't know. And mind you, I skipped the LLCs because I knew I wasn't going to be able to reach anyone. So I skipped the LLCs and just called the people directly. And I wasn't skipping that many people. So I don't know. I don't know if I can agree with that. But that's why I'm saying he needs to say where because I don't know where he is. I don't know what housing market he's in. But I'm telling you, based on my housing market in Atlanta, that's not my experience.
Some of them own more money and more assets. I think it's like $13 trillion worth of assets, and have more money and more capital than the GDP of China. All right, so they have a lot of money. They have a lot of money at their disposal to do this kind of stuff. So anyway, they buy these homes 20 to 30% above asking price. We can't compete. Then
also let me tell you the logic behind if they did do what he's saying they're doing, which is buying it and selling it to themselves for higher. It may not make sense because it's like, why would they do that? Like, why are they buying the property and they're keeping the money in essence, like they're not really doing anything. What is happening is once the house is sold for a particular price point, it is registered on the system that the housing market is going up in value, which means that the properties that are going for sale, they're going to run comparative market analysis. They're going to run comps on the properties and see like, oh, all these properties sold for $500,000. I was planning on selling it for $400,000, but it seems like my home is worth more than that. So I'm going to list my house for $500,000 because these other homes are listed for that much. That's usually how we price properties. We price properties by comparing the properties similar within a certain radius of that property that you want to sell. So if the property similar nearby are selling for higher, then if you're going to list your property, you're going to list it for higher, and thereby causing the housing market to skyrocket. But what my question is what do these major corporations gain from doing such a thing? That is my question. Like, what are they going to gain from causing the housing prices to go up? And I maybe he will have an answer for me. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not saying that they're not doing it, and I'm not saying that they are. What I'm saying is I need to understand their logic behind doing it, because I'm sure that if they're doing something like that, it has to be a logic behind it. They're not just doing that. It's strategic.
Resell them to themselves. Let's say they buy the home for $300,000 like they did in this case. They'll turn around and sell that home to themselves for $700,000. So what does that do? it jacks up the home values in that neighborhood, because all of a sudden we have homes that are suddenly selling for over twice the amount that somebody paid for them. That's going to jack the home value up. That also jacks up the property taxes, not just for that home, but for that entire area. Because if you have a corporation or an investment firm that comes in, they buy, let's say, 10 homes in a neighborhood, and then they jack the price of those homes up, it's going to increase the property taxes for.
And if it increases the property taxes, it's going to decrease affordability for a lot of people living in the area. And if it decreases affordability, there probably will be a higher amount of foreclosures, in which a lot of these investor corporations will come in and swoop in and take those foreclosed properties. The only issue with that is we are finding that a lot of these investor-owned properties are being sold off. That they're letting go of their real estate portfolio. A lot of them, they're selling a lot of their portfolio. So I don't know.
For that entire neighborhood. And that's another psyop, is the fact that property taxes are in fact increasing across the country.
That's true.
And everybody's saying, well, it's just inflation. It's just the government raising taxes. That's partially true. But that's not the entire truth, because the entire truth includes this. And that is the fact that these corporations and these investment firms are doing this, which is artificially inflating the property taxes for most of America. And most of us that own homes, I own too, we see that. My property taxes have gone up just like everybody else's. And it's largely due to this, because this is increasing at a monumental scale, and it's not going to slow down. So that right there, the increase of property taxes is enough to, in some cases, price people out of their homes. Because
okay, I'm with him, but I still need to get an understanding as to why they would do that. Like, why would they want to price people out of their homes? Is it to swoop in and buy those properties? Is it to just randomly inflate the property prices and then just ha to the bank? Like, why would they do that? That's what I want to know, because if he says that the reason is because they need to swoop in and do that, I can just do a quick Google search and show you that a lot of them are letting go of their investments. So, I mean, what he's saying sounds logical, and a lot of people, this is the thing. When we are experiencing hardships and negativity, like things in our lives that we don't want, that are not ideal for us, we as human beings want to find who to blame. We want to shift the blame. We want to figure out who is the cause of this. And that's a natural phenomenon. It's not a special thing. This is, I do it, you do it, we all do it. We want to figure out what the root cause is. The difference is some people take accountability and some don't. Now, in the case of housing, income, just livability, right? A lot of things are being blamed that don't need to be blamed. The government is blaming landlords. The people are blaming investors. The people are blaming the government. It's like people are shifting the blames to somebody X, Y, and Z. And that is understandable. If you sit down and just listen to what he said at face value and didn't do any research, it makes sense. Oh, these big investors are doing this. Oh, forget the investors. We need the investors out. Once the investors are out, what about the mom and pop investors? Why don't you get mad at those people? Oh, wait, people are getting upset with them too. The landlords are the problem. But the landlords are the problem because the taxes are higher, so they have to increase the prices of their home because they can't afford to, drop the rent on you and still keep paying high mortgage prices. I don't think that the root of the issue is being addressed. And I feel like the puppet master is in the corner somewhere just laughing at the chaos that's happening. We're going to keep watching this video because I really want to get and understand the logic behind what he's saying, but we are shifting the blame. Like don't get me wrong, the investors, they're wealthy billionaires. They probably have done some evil, sick, maniacal things. I'm not taking that away from them. However, in a case like this, We are looking at facts. We are looking for facts. We're looking at objective information, right? We're not looking, oh, these millionaires, it's what is the word? It is wrong for people to be billionaires or trillionaires. Hey, that is not my argument. And honestly, I wish them all the best. Good luck to them. Okay, that's an emotional stance. The point is, if they are doing these things, if they are inflating the prices of homes by doing what they're doing, what are they going to gain from it? Because a lot of these institutions are not just going to randomly do things if they're not going to benefit from it. What are they going to gain from it? Is it that they just don't want people to own homes? Because as you can see, they only own less than way less than 30% of homes. They own only 10% of all the investor-owned properties. And 90% is from regular people like you and me. So I'm trying to understand the logic behind why they would artificially inflate home prices. Let's look at the logic, and that's what this channel is all about. We're not going to put our emotions in this, our perspectives. Like, yeah, of course we want our perspectives, but we're not going to use our perspective to completely skew the facts and take away from what the truth really is. Because yes, the investors have an issue. The private investors may be an issue, but I don't think it's as bad as they're trying to make it seem. But let's keep watching.
Because they don't earn enough, because things are so inflated and people are kind of struggling to make ends meet as it already is. They don't earn enough to pay those inflated property taxes. It's not included in the budget. And that's not something they're seeing a return on, because it's not like they're earning money from their home. It's unrealized gains. That's a major problem. So what happens when those people can't pay the property taxes? They lose their home, they leave. And then these private investment firms come in and they gobble those homes up for 20 to 30% above asking price. They do the same thing. And you can see where this is a vicious cycle that is essentially leading to what is happening. These people are legally, and that is a bad thing that this is legal, they're legally stealing the American dream. They're stealing our homes out from under us. And it's not looking good. And then what they do from there is that once they own enough homes in a residential area, they then turn around and they sell those homes to companies that they own. And that artificially inflates the entire market. And that, again, is exactly what's happening. But even beyond that is that now...
I think the anger is misdirected. Not gonna lie to you. I've told you guys a story of the fact that just last month, I had a closing with a client. We purchased a property that was investor owned. The entire neighborhood was built as an investor owned property that they were renting out. The investors are letting go of, a lot of people are upset in that neighborhood because their lease is not going to be renewed. And unless they're planning on purchasing the property, they need to find another place to live because the investors are selling their properties. They're letting go of their real estate portfolio. And this is a personal experience that I'm experiencing. Now, at this time, my client, the neighborhood was filled with a bunch of investor-owned properties. Not even the neighborhood, the city itself. And so we were looking for properties for my clients. And these investor-owned properties, they were not willing to budge on prices, some of them. But they weren't willing to budge on prices, but the price of the homes were market value. They weren't overpriced properties. They were market value properties. I just was looking for the best deal for my clients. But they weren't willing to budge because they could afford to hold on to those properties. But it wasn't that the properties were overpriced by any means, because we would not even have scheduled to look at those properties if they were overpriced. But they were holding on to those properties because they could. But guess what? My client ended up buying an investor-owned property. And the investor was willing to negotiate on price. They fixed every single issue that was addressed. Well, not every single. I would say probably like 90% of the issues that were addressed. Matter of fact, no, they did fix 100% of the issues that were addressed. They did. And then my clients found some small other things, and by the time we had brought it up to them, it was a little bit too late. But they fixed 100% of the issues that were addressed initially. They what else? They lowered the price of the property. They gave closing costs, so they made less on that property. So as much as we want to villainize these corporations, I mean, I genuinely don't believe that the corporations are the reason, the sole reason. Like I said, we are trying to find, kind of like when you think about in court, the persecutors want to persecute someone. They don't care who they persecute. So they will go all in at finding any form of evidence to persecute someone, regardless of whether or not that person is guilty, because they just want to move on to another case. That is what it feels like. It seems like the American people are trying to find a blame. They're trying to find a cause and then put all the blame on that thing. Yes, private investors may definitely have a negative effect on the housing market. They may, or they may not. I'm not saying they don't. But to solely say, or to say that they are the sole reason as to why the housing market is the way that it is, I feel like I wouldn't say it's disingenuous. I think it's just kind of like a survival tactic in a way that we do, where we just want to put all the blame on one people, because I personally don't think that they're at fault. Mind you, they're not paying me a dime. I don't work for a private company, investor company. They don't know me. I don't know them. I don't know none of these people. But I'm just telling you from my perspective, I don't think that we can say that they are the reason. And no.
That these corporations and these private investment firms now own these homes, us little guys at the bottom will never get them back, because this is not generational anymore. It's not like if I buy a home and then I own it for say 40 or 50 years, I pass away and the home goes back up on the market. That doesn't happen with these corporations, because they are an entity. It's not a person. So there is no passing away. There is no putting the home back on the market. It just stays with these companies. So what they do is they never sell them, and what they do instead is they rent or lease them. And of course, they're not going to rent them or lease them at market value. They're going to rent them or lease them at a value that is much higher, because they control the market. So now, instead of you having an $1,800 a month mortgage, you now have to pay $2,500 a month in a rental or a lease agreement. And the worst part about that is that you never own the home. So you're basically throwing that money away just to have a roof over your head. And if by chance you ever want to leave that home, you don't get any of that money back. You've just thrown all that away. This is how they trap us in the system.
I'm gonna just end this video here, and I'm gonna share the link in the description like usual. If you want to watch the whole thing, you can watch it. The link will be in my description. But I used to think like him. When I heard news information, news data talking about the fact that investors are gonna do X, Y, and Z, and I had like real estate colleagues, that's my Nigerian accent coming out, but my colleagues that work in real estate who are working with private equity and all these things to give them properties that they find. I used to be like, yo, these are the villains. Like, you don't want to do that. They're artificially inflating the housing prices and X, Y, and Z. That's wrong. They're moving, people out or displacing people. And then I did the research. I actually sat down and said, you know what, like, what's actually really happening? Who are the people that are investing? Because I know that a lot of people are personally investing. I know people that invest in properties personally, and I'm an investor myself. So it's not necessarily that the issue is the private companies, corporations. What about the mom and pop? Why aren't y'all blaming them? Why aren't you blaming us? Now, like I said, some people are blaming us, but like I said, I understand his perspective, because I once upon a time was there too. But I do not believe that we need to put all the blame, some blame maybe, but not all the blame. There's something that is underlying that we are not seeing. There are some puppet masters that are doing things that we don't even see, that are affecting things. And the only people that we see are the people next up, the landlords. The government is taxing us. Who else? The lenders are giving too high of an interest rate, like blaming everyone but who the root of the cause is. And we don't know who the person is. At least I don't know. Maybe somebody knows that they're not sharing. or at least I haven't come across the answer, because I have not found a logical response or a logical answer as to why home prices are going up, other than the price that, yes, the pandemic caused a surge in sales and then caused a surge in interest rates to go up because it was so low and it needed to correct itself. So it overcorrected itself and now it's starting to slowly come back down. But that is any market. I'm not gonna lie, mind you, I am speaking on this from a person who looks at the stock market and who just understands what the market is looking like. Now, once again, I told y'all, if I decide to get my master's, don't be surprised if I get a master's in economics, because I absolutely love it. But someone that sits there and looks at the market, I see that this is just the ebb and flow of a market, of any market. The real estate market is an appreciating market. It will always appreciate. It will always go up. And sometimes it may go up significantly, but then eventually it will correct itself and it may overcorrect itself and crash. But guess what? It will go right back up. That is the nature of most markets, especially a market that historically is an appreciating market. So I want to know what your thoughts are about this, because I don't think I learned anything new personally, and it's nothing against this creator. I just don't feel like I learned anything other than, you know, what everyone is already saying about the fact that these investors are causing these hyperinflation of home prices. Yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think that the investors are to blame, mom and pop investors or the private corporations? Do you think there's a deeper issue? Do you think that there is a puppet master somewhere? Do you think the government is to blame? Who do you think is to blame? I want to have a discussion going, understand what the perspective is of the American people, and also maybe, you know, shed some light in something that I'm not even looking at. But anyway, thank y'all so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to like this video. I love you. And remember, God loves you even more. Bye. And I'll see you in the next one.